Elden Ring is the greatest achievement since the moon landing. This might seem like an odd comparison, but I want you to consider it for just a moment. Elden Ring is in its essence a final form, a perfect cast, a die of the art form that is video games. If the art of science can put someone on the moon, and the statue is the art of people casting immortality through stone, Elden Ring is a pinnacle achievement in the medium of its own right. It is a form of high art that draws parallels to the classical masters, and it's made high art accessible to a wider audience. It has philosophical underpinnings that expose an entire generation to the nature of power and the allure of the divine. Elden Ring lets you live a painting that you can experience, and your adventures in it mirror your own life. This is how. This video is not a plot synopsis. It's a journey into the game's lineage and the cultural and artistic contexts that shape it. I think to truly understand Elden Ring, you have to compare it to its appropriate references, drawing parallels with matters of divine concepts and profound artistic expression. We'll start with the Renaissance period. Between 1490 and 1510, the early Netherlandish master Hieronymus Bosch painted the Garden of Earthly Delights. The greens and blues provoke a sense of familiarity, but when one looks at the magical creatures, strange fleshy structures, and humans among beasts and unsettling poses and behaviors, it becomes clear that this painting would never have been displayed in a church. It doesn't represent the same sort of clean, often white and gold, calming esotericism of the Renaissance. Take a map of the lands between the setting of Elden Ring and place it over the top of this painting. You can almost see it splayed out with eerily similar direction. The point is, this painting is not Michelangelo, and Elden Ring is not Lord of the Rings. Elden Ring confronts us with beauty and horror, wonder and dread. Elden Ring has a lot of grotesque and monstrous visual imagery. The objects of conquest in the game are so vile at times. They almost seem to take on demonic qualities. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, fed himself to a powerful serpent, fusing with it to, in his own words, devour the very gods. The ruler of Stormvale Castle, Godric the Grafted, derives his strength from the limbs of soldiers sacrificed to his body. This grotesque imagery is not gratuitous. It serves a purpose in exploring the dark side of human nature and the corrupting influence of power. This aligns with the long-standing tradition in art of using mythological figures and creatures to grapple with complex themes and emotions that we can relate to. Elden Ring is a visually tremendous game, but it also has great writing and world building. Elden Ring's exploration of the tarnished nature of religious power resonates deeply in today's world, even with allusions to matters of statehood. To summarize, the world of Elden Ring, as we know, is tended to by an outer god known as the Greater Will. The very name of this god is significant in that it's not a name we think of, like Venus or Thor or just God. Greater Will is more like a phrase. It implies that this thing is a force, a cosmic concept, not a single entity that we can assign a face and a voice to. It's not something we really see ourselves communicating with, so we gotta go along with it, right? If it's some force that just controls the universe, then we can't fight it. Well, that's where the conflict comes from. The Greater Will has complete and total control over the lands between, propagated by the Golden Order. Now, the Golden Order is intentionally fragmented as a concept, but it's equal parts philosophical and religious movement. This distant god then bestows blessings to individuals upon the land, sometimes denoting so-called Empyreans, which are candidates for godhood. Queen Marika the Eternal is one of these Empyreans, and she ushered in a new golden age by confining the Rune of Death. The Rune of Death is a magical artifact that, when sealed, removed the fated deaths of demigods, such as herself. While initially the Golden Order ushered in a period of prosperity, human associations with godhood proved problematic. Marika's rule was not without problems. The Golden Order violently clamped down on dissenters like the Nux, the Nightfolk, Albanorax, and the race of the merchants you'll find throughout the game. For their treachery, the Nox in particular were banished to the underground city of Nokron, their civilization forever shrouded in darkness. Marika's decision to disrupt the natural cycle of life and death has disastrous consequences, echoing mythological stories where individuals attempt to prevent death to great calamity. For example, Eos, the Greek goddess of the dawn, falls in love with the mortal Tithonus and asks Zeus to grant him immortality. However, she forgets to ask for eternal youth. Tithonus lives forever but grows increasingly old and frail, eventually withering away into a cicada, to which he suffered endlessly. Unfortunately for the people of the lands between, the tears don't stop flowing. When Marika's demigod's son, Godwyn the Golden, was slain by a mysterious force, the enraged queen took the Elden Ring, the collection of runes that represent a natural law of the world, and shattered it, its pieces strewn across the entire landscape of the game. This ushers in an apocalyptic age where Marika's demigod kin fight for control of the Elden Ring's fragments, bringing more violence across the land. These events are known as the Shattering. These gods and demigods are in their own right a kind of pantheon that exists within the game world, and for you, the audience. Much like pantheons have existed throughout the course of human history. While we may not believe there really is a giant man in the sky who can hurl lightning bolts from the clouds upon us, the idea of it is at least very compelling. The key difference in Elden Ring is that when you navigate the game world, the machinations of its divine figures are real. It's virtual, but for your purposes, when you immerse yourself in the game world, the cataclysmic effects of the Shattering are observed in the ruins and remnants of past civilizations, as well as stories from the characters that navigate it. It makes it feel real. It makes it feel like these things really happened. Rebukes of the Golden Order are not uncommon, and cut dialogue from one of the nomadic merchants. He mourns the treatment of his people, confined to catacombs beneath the capital city, where they are cursed to wither away and starve, alone, unseen, unnoticed by the Erdtree's grace. His rage-fueled lamentation can be seen as hauntingly similar to contemporary conversations regarding cast-aside peoples today.
What they did to my ancestors, the whole clan buried alive, sick, maddened, husks of themselves. May chaos take the world.
But the crux of Elden Ring's story revolves around the Erdtree, which quite clearly is inspired by the concept of the world tree Yggdrasil, commonly cited in Norse cosmology. In the Norse stories, everything, the entire world, exists around Yggdrasil, as it does in the game, visible from every corner of the map. In spectacle alone, this is a compelling visual. The golden hue of its presence casts a warm glow to the heart, despite the dire circumstances of the landscape you find yourself in, no matter where you go. But that is only at surface value. In reality, the decline of religiosity in the West creates a fascinating backdrop for Elden Ring's exploration of faith and spirituality. It has a rich tapestry of mythological allusions and philosophical underpinnings, inviting us to reflect on the nature of faith, power, and the human condition in a way that few other video games have achieved at scale. This exploration starts in a crypt, where your player character is brought back to life from the god we were talking about, by the greater will. You're known as Tarnished. A Tarnished, as it's described in the context of the game's story, is an individual who long ago lost the grace of the Erdtree. It is a brand used to refer to banished warriors who fought under Godfrey, first Elden Lord. Godfrey waged great battles for his queen, Marika. He led the war against the giants of the north, who posed the most direct threat to the Erdtree, with their fire that could burn it down. But when Godfrey defeated his last worthy opponent, it is said that the hue of his eyes faded, and in return, his queen banished him and his warriors from the lands between. She sentenced them to roam in a far distant land after a long march, where they would wage war, die, and be called again by grace to fight in the name of the Golden Order for the Elden Ring. When Marika's son Godwyn was slain, her demigod kin fight for the pieces of the ring. But the greater will does not give them its support. Uninterested in taking sides in petty squabbling, instead, it reaches out to one single Tarnished to return to the lands between and fight, just as their queen had commanded them many years ago. You are that Tarnished. You will fight and die and live again and again and again to determine whatever fate you see fit over the lands between. This is where Elden Ring's medium becomes important, because the decisions you make paint different paintings. There are several endings to the game that all speak to a certain philosophy, a certain thesis, that you wish to make of an apocalyptic high fantasy world, where gods have abandoned people in times of great struggle. The motivations and the movements of the greater will are not made 100% clear on purpose. That intentional fragmentation of the narrative is how you interface with the art. You don't really know why you need to become Elden Lord. You don't know why you're fighting for the Elden Ring. You just know that you're being compelled to do so. Reflect on how many ancient warriors were sent into battle on behalf of whatever god or goddess is. How many of those warriors didn't have the luxury of questioning their belief set? For this reason, I'd go as far to call Elden Ring a pseudo-religious experience. It's difficult to stop talking about it because the game and the world and the writing are just so entrenched in that topic. In Elden Ring, just like reality, religion has been used to wage war, to treat people in a nasty way, as well as in a compassionate way. Religion takes human emotional investment in something and can amplify that emotional investment to thousands of times. In that way, Elden Ring and other RPGs that feature powerful incantations that scale with your faith stat aren't so different from real life. The cuts the game makes are deep in the mechanics too. Faith-based incantations share a lot in common with hidden sorceries like the magic of dragons, as well as druidic beast-like spells, to which the Golden Order of Elden Ring tries to hide and obfuscate. Likewise, Christianity in reality has a history with magic that isn't really talked about, unless you're a heretic, of course. As a Souls game, it has a strong emphasis on death and rebirth, resurrection, surmounting struggles, adversity to become great. In that, it can echo the Judeo-Christian concept of being born again. Second chances, redemptions, grace. The god Queen Marika the Eternal's decision to upend the natural order of the world paves a compelling road for your player character to follow. To mend the Elden Ring, you must be capable of killing a god.
The Erdtree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart. Thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god.
But what I think is really important in making Elden Ring and other Soulsborne games too, is the difficulty. The difficulty is what brings it all together, and it's a controversial part of the experience. Some people bluntly state it's not the fault of the developers, but the game is just not for them. It's too nerve-wracking, it's too much. To be perfectly clear, I think this mindset is perfectly valid. Souls games aren't for everyone, but for persistent people. They scratch an itch that no other game really can, and I think the reason that people find these games so compelling, the reason they keep coming back for more, knowing they're going to get their butts kicked again and again and again, is because the feeling of winning and overcoming such insurmountable obstacles is immensely satisfying and tells you you can do the same in your own life. In many ways, Soulsborne games, Elden Ring included, mirror your personal experiences in life. Soulsborne games say something about each individual who plays them. Like me. I remember greatly enjoying the first Dark Souls when I seriously got into it, but something happened after I beat Ornstein and Smog. I stopped playing. Just outside of the boss room runs a long corridor with a chest. I remember briefly thinking to myself as I was running down, sprinting, there's no way they'd put a mimic here. That would just be way, way, way too on the nose. I remember feeling so called out mentally here. I just got done trying to beat this boss for the better part of 2 hours, and they still put a check of mental exhaustion here. I let my guard down after fighting hard, and the game designers knew that. They did it on purpose. And the fact that I knew that made me upset. I didn't rage out, but I turned the console off, and then Dark Souls got away from me. I always told myself I'll get back to it, but I didn't. I never touched it again. Somewhere on my old Xbox account, that save is still floating around, waiting for me. The journey at the end of that game forever unfinished. Just over a decade has passed, and I've put games down not necessarily out of boredom or difficulty, but instances where I just got really busy. It got so bad that I made a list of all the games, books, and TV shows I never finished, and the list is crushingly long. And on that list are 2 more From Software games that I enjoyed immensely, and I talked about when I was playing them. Armored Core 6 and Elden Ring. Before working on this video, my business partner asked me, at what point did I stop playing? I said, millennia. He said, that's understandable.
Hit her one time!
Newly emboldened by the couch of ambition, I decided to install the game for the first time in a year and a half. It also became a bonding experience with my brother, who couldn't really deal with the game when it first came out, but he recently came back to it with the new expansion. Both of us are in completely different places in life nowadays, but Elden Ring has been here for us even after I moved halfway across the country. And that enhances my connection to the game. It enhances my connection to this moving symphony of dark and light, twisted and beautiful. I got to hear my friend's reaction when Radahn soared through the sky from orbit for the first time. Oh my god!
Oh my god! No!
I forgot all about
No!
that! Oh, no.
Christ!
I
I
forgot.
think he's literally going to turn into a meteorite.
No, he did. He did turn into a meteor. So Radagon was a demigod. He had 2 kids with Renala. That is Rykard, which you haven't fought yet, and Ranni, who I don't think you've met yet. Ranni is an Empyrean, and the big wolf guy, Blaidd, he's her retainer. And Radahn was also a son of Radagon. But Radagon, right after... I'm not above calling Elden Ring's characters a modern pantheon. The game's fights consist of pitched battles against members of the pantheon. You fight gods and demigods, gods with human sins, human capriciousness, human avarice. You also fight gods with human struggles, gods in unwinnable situations that you sympathize with. Elden Ring didn't just create a twistedly beautiful landscape to play in that's grand and breathtaking on its own, but it echoes the classical works of old with the same sort of sincerity and maturity as they did many years ago. What ending you choose in Elden Ring also posits interesting arguments as to how you feel about this pantheon. Do you reject the hold that the Greater Will has on the Lands Between? Ranni the Witch's questline is a condemnation of that. But some endings involve restoration of the Greater Will's power in the Lands Between. Another ending that strays from the rest of all of these is a much more twisted one, and that is of the Frenzied Flame, where the Tarnished burns the world to the ground on behalf of the outer god of chaos, returning it to the primal state of chaos that it was before the Greater Will came to the Lands Between at all. It's scary and unsettling, but apocalyptic fates like this are common in religious scripture. Playing the game tells a story. It tells a story about you. It tells a story about what you value. It's a level above emergent gameplay. It's emergent history. Ancient history.
Brave Tarnished, mighty warriors who fought at my side, await the summons. It will call to thee one day. Heed the fading grace. Gold commandeth the very stars, giving life its fullest brilliance. Seek the Elden Ring, O Tarnished. Across the sea of fog to the lands between. Become Lord. Enact thy will. Seek the Elden Ring.
It's no secret that J.R.R. Tolkien was a devout Catholic, and I've spent a lot of time talking about faith. But in taking much of the visual and cultural language of Western folklore like elves, fairies, and the like, He managed to reinvigorate storytelling that goes back since ancient times. I believe Elden Ring does this again. It may be considerably more grimdark than any tale of King Arthur and Camelot, but by daring to peer into that abyss, it evokes strong, stirring feelings, and there's only one way to describe those feelings efficiently. It does this because it's art. Elden Ring is a work of high art, popular in the mainstream, showing that games can be used to tell powerful, provocative tales. It's not for everyone, and not everybody can appreciate high art. Not everybody has the patience to leave questions unanswered for hours, days, years at a time, to not have things linear and spelled out. After all, life is confusing enough, right? But I also think that's the beauty of a Soulsborne game. If life is already chaotic, you can embrace the chaos a little bit. You can tell whatever story you want. You're not instructed to go fight the bosses in any particular order. In fact, many of the bosses in Elden Ring are optional. If you hit your head against a wall and it's just too much, you can explore somewhere else, get stronger, come back, beat that boss later. The world of Elden Ring is twisted, but it is manageable. You can surmount its obstacles. You can be truly, transcendentally great. And if you're armed with that knowledge, what are you going to do? If you're anything like me, you'll put the game down after 90 hours, but you'll come back to it one day. Journeys are always there for you. You can always start again. The key is to start.